everyone, it's your girl Darlencia, and for this episode of Creative Spotlight Unplugged, I have my middle school counselor with me, Mr. Whitlatch. I'm just really excited. I'm really excited because Mr. Whitlatch have seen me grown, watched me grown from a beautiful young lady to the grown, beautiful young lady that I am today. He's impacted so many students in the Philadelphia school district. I have to say the entire school district.
The whole school district.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just excited to be here. I'm nervous. I want to do well, but I'm excited.
So welcome, Mr. Whitlatch. Thank you for being here. How are you? How you feeling?
To be here. I feel really good. I feel nervous.
You don't have to be nervous. This is going to be a nice, calm, casual conversation, just like what we used to do back in your office when I was in 6th and 7th grade.
I said we can film it or not, but I'm just excited to talk to Darlencia Nobrun. That makes me. You were one of the best conversationalists even back then. So it was like you kept the levity.
I always kept him on his toes. Yeah, always. Yeah. So I mean,
that's what we'll call it. Yeah.
Kept you on your toes. So I know about you.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of the students that you've worked with in Northwood Academy Charter School, which is where I met him, that's based in Philadelphia, a great charter school. So I know a little about you. Could you share to our audience who you are and the impact that you've had
to
us as students? Because you've seen a lot of us grown in generations. So when I was in 6th and 7th grade, he was my counselor. It was like not just 6th and 7th. It was like 4th, 5th, 4th.
So it was only 8th grade. I knew you for 1 year.
Wait, what?
True story. Yeah, I knew you for 1 year. You guys were my first class ever at Northwood. I knew you for your 8th grade year. Yeah, and I was in that office and they were painting it all year. And I was painting, that's what.
So I was there when Northwood first became a school.
Right.
And then you came years afterwards. Wow. Yeah. So who are you?
But I might have known you earlier because I was a math teacher there anyway, but for 1 year. My name is, I'm Adam Whitlatch. I'm a school counselor and I have been for the last 16 years in the city of Philadelphia. And the greatest credit to me is that you were one of my students. What am I about though? Is that what you mean?
The impact that you had on all of us as students.
Impact. So people always talk about impact in counseling. And for me, my favorite thing to do in life was just to talk to people. And so there's a lot of folks that will dwell on impact. But for me, it was I want to have fun. And the most fun thing for me is talking to people. And counseling allowed me to do that. So when I was in college and stuff like that, I ping-ponged around into majors and stuff.
Right.
I was in theater, or I wasn't in theater, but I was in broadcast, and I was in psychology, and I was in education. And the best of all of it to me was counseling. And so that's how I found my way into that. And that's what got me here. But the impact thing is always disarming for me because...
Yeah, you always seem taken back when you hear great things about how you've impacted us as students.
Yeah, I don't
know if it's that you don't know, but if you don't believe it or
it's not that I don't believe it. It's just that I'm humbled by it, and I don't always know how to receive that that compliment. But I'm really grateful, and it's wonderful to see everybody going out and doing things, and that's maybe the greatest joy that I get in just life. It's just seeing y'all go out and if I had any part of that, but I would argue that for anybody, including yourself, you were going to do stuff regardless. You were just a person that was like that. I'm not just saying that because you have a show now, but it was there was something about Darlencia Nobrun. First of all, you were the funniest person that I knew.
I am
to this
funny.
day, you're on my Mount Rushmore of just funny people. And so there's things that you notice about people when they're young, that it's fun to nurture and it's fun. You know how anyway, we're getting into such different answers. I don't want to, I could just tangent the whole time, but I don't want to do that.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
what else you got?
I want to sit a little bit about you being a counselor.
Yeah.
Right. I don't even see him as a counselor because literally I feel at such a young age, I more so saw you as an advocate.
Okay.
For us.
Yeah.
for everyone in the school. And I don't think that like if you didn't go to Northwood, of course you wouldn't really see the impact that he's had. But literally, like those of us that went to Northwood and that may be watching this episode, we all know Mr. Whitlatch. And we all knew that like his door was always open and we always could talk to him about anything. Like we could always feel comfortable around you. So when we think about the concept of being a counselor, right? Yeah. Education could be seen as an art form. It really is an art form. So 100%. How do you approach education creatively in your role as a counselor? I know that you said that like conversation is very important to you, but what other ways creatively would you approach that as a counselor?
Yeah, I view it as an art form because there's an art to conversation. And like there's an art to building relationship.
Right.
And if we're looking at how to build better relationships, if we're not like regarding that as an art form, then we're probably not going to get better at it. So whether it's teacher to student or father to son or mother to daughter or mother to or spouse to whatever it is, you're going to be better at it if you look at it as an art form. And if you look at it as something like you want to hone and a craft you want to get better at. And so counseling for me is that. And how you build relationships with somebody. Like I look at it as my job to try to access a kid in whatever way that I can. And so every kid is different. So every angle that you take, every approach that you take is different with every kid. And you try things.
Right.
And you like, all right, this doesn't work. Let me try this angle. Let me try this angle. Let me try this angle. And so through trial and error, you figure out. And to me, that's what an artist does, like with lines and like what a musician does with sounds. And like it's what a counselor does with conversation and how I build a relationship. Because like some people are easily accessible. You were one who came to me. You were like...
You came to me, but okay.
You would be, first of all, now that I'm all this great counselor, the first memory I have of you, this is Mr. Hoodlatch. He's my fake...
Hoodlatch, not Whitlatch.
This is my fake counselor. And I was in my first year. And so, but you were like, you would like jab at me in this like funny way. And it taught me about like, it honestly taught me for the rest of my counseling career that like you get somewhere through adding levity to a conversation. Some kids you act through like making fun of them a little bit because what they're doing is kind of silly. You know what I mean? And I learned that from you. And most of what I know, I learned from kids. And just like, But yes, but anyway, some kids it's real natural. And so the relationship that I had with you was real natural and flowed and that. It's not always like that. And so there's like a different approach you have. So I pride myself on seeing a kid and maybe feeling like they're alone and trying to figure out how to access that kid and then bring out the part of their identity that I see as being something great and that can blossom into something later on. You know what I'm saying?
I love that you said that because my next question was going to be like, what innovative strategies have you implemented to engage with students? And you kind of touch based on that. Do you have any other specific strategies that you may have used to engage with students?
Yeah, it's really just observation. Yeah, I was quiet for the first like 20 years of my life. I didn't say much at all. I just watched people. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so when you watch people, you learn about them.
Right.
And the only skill that I have, honestly, as an adult, is I have an endless curiosity about everything and everybody. And I could sit with anybody and I have a genuine curiosity about kind of what makes you go, like what wakes you up in the morning. What, you know what I mean? And so I don't know if that's a strategy, but it's like an obsession of mine that's just like kind of always been there. And like, and so
that's
when I
worked
see
for you as well. Now, do you have any success stories from
zero? I failed and failed
from this approach.
Failed.
What do you mean?
It's a journey, man. Like I don't look at any of it as like a success. I look
from
at
the approach that you use to engage with students. Yeah. And I think you listed like several success stories.
Yeah, man.
One, me being an example.
You're the prime example. I mean, Creative Spotlight Unplugged.
Yeah.
Man, every time I see a kid out there and doing something that they want to be doing, or having positive relationships with the people around them, or whatever. I'm not saying necessarily they're happy all the time, because you're not happy all the time in life. But anytime I see that, I'm like, that's amazing. That's like, but also you had it in you the whole time. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Rick Rubin has this thing. I'm like Rick Rubin obsessed, right? So Rick Rubin has this thing where he like hones in on someone's essence and like tries to bring that out. You know what I mean? And so like what I try to do is that.
Right.
If there's anything that I do, it's that. I'm just curious about what are you at your core? You don't always know that when you're in sixth grade or fifth grade or fourth grade. You never do. You know what I mean? But bringing out those like great things, and every kid has those, is like what I try to do good at. Try to be okay at.
Good. So in terms of conversations and having conversations, how do you feel like you foster open and honest conversations with your students? Because you're dealing with young students. And actually, I was a third grade teacher once. And
really?
You didn't know that?
I didn't know that. No.
For a few months, yeah. And it was a very eye-opening experience for me. Because one, it was very emotional, because I really like noticed how these students, my babies, who they were at the time, they really relied on me to come in every day and be that, not savior, but to be their rock.
Yeah, they're dependent on you.
They're very, yes, because you never know what they're going through at home. So same thing as a counselor, you served as a lot to many people, to many of us when we were kids. So how did you like foster open and honest communication with us? Because you deal with students that may be very introverted, may deal with students that act out a lot, may deal with students but you always seem to find a way to find that one thing to kind of like break the ice in them and to have them trust you and build a relationship with them.
Yeah, I try my best. And like I said, it's a different angle for everybody. I think of a scene, there's a scene in the movie Good Will Hunting, and Matt Damon walks in and he's talking with Robin Williams, and Robin Williams knows that he's disinterested in everything. Like he eventually picks up in about like 20 seconds of the scene, like he's disinterested in everything. And he's asking him questions. So he starts asking him like, you know, how are your family? Like, what's going on? So he's serious at first, and then he sees he's not giving him any energy back. And so he starts changing the questions around, and then he gets him mad. And then Matt Damon starts responding back like, what about you? He's like, I don't know. You read the books. I don't care about those. You know what I mean? And you can tell he's just, and then he gives them the same energy back.
Right.
So every kid doesn't come into my space in the same way. Sometimes they're angry. Right. Sometimes they're sad. Sometimes they're really happy. Sometimes they just walk in you know what I mean? Right. And just like come in, you know what I mean? And like, figuring out the different ways. That's the art form. You know what I mean? Like that's the job. Like that's, and that's what I love. That's what I love most about it. Yeah. So it's like not everybody's in the same place at the same time in their life, but understanding where someone is, sitting with someone for that, you know, those like initial moments, and just trying to get to where they are. And it might take a few different times, and it might take a different, like I might have to see you in the hallway and be shoulder to shoulder with you, as opposed to sitting in a chair face to face with you. Right. Or I might need to talk about, you know, Joel Embiid or whatever. And like, that's how we get there. But like, there's access points for everybody's, their quality world, what they value is different. So it's like figuring out those things is a big deal.
So when it came to me as a student, what made your experiences with me, or what stood out with your experiences with me as a student that helped you to see that like our conversations became like unique and helped you to grow as a counselor? Because I'm sure I've had an impact.
You did.
Your growth.
No. Not lying, not just because I'm on this show. You 100% are a reason why I stuck with counseling for as long as I did.
Only me?
You were one of them. You were one of a handful. You were one of a handful. Your class was like legendary. Like there's like iconic people that like,
for sure,
when you're talking about formative years in school that you're having, like there's formative years for someone professionally in the counseling field, to where I remember so like you guys are tattooed. Like a lot of you guys are just like not in my arm, but like in my brain. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what was it about you? It was your ability to bring levity to a situation.
Mm-hmm.
You always made me like laugh in a human way, like not just like, oh, there's a funny student that I have, but like I would like laugh till I was like crying at some of the things that you would say. Like I remember you came.
And I was very shy back then. I did not grow or come into myself
Who
yet.
was shy?
I was shy back then.
Not by 8th grade. You were like owning it. By 8th grade, you were. I would not have said you were shy at all. You didn't. You thought you were shy then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like when I went to high school is when
you came out of it. You were starting to come out of it in 8th grade, I swear.
Okay.
Yeah, you had this thing. I remember you came back for an alumni night and Miss Free, and you had this quick. Your wit was like razor sharp, and everybody.
I probably learned my wit from you.
No, man, you can't teach that. It just like rolls. You everyone's asking. I better not name names here, whatever.
Yeah.
But one of our administrators was asking everyone what they're doing and expecting like, oh, I'm filling out college apps and I'm doing this.
Right.
And you, without batting an eye, were like, I have 3 kids, 2 different.
Why would I say that? I play too much.
Just without, and then you walked in the room. You didn't even like go back and but it was like so fun, like because you gave her the opposite of what everybody else was like. It cracked me up. I still remember that moment. We were at the East Building. And I still remember it.
Wow,
like,
I am
razor sharp.
That's me.
That's you.
So, what advice would you have for educators who are looking to improve their conversational skills? Because as you said, it really is an art form, but it's something that you really can't, it kind of has to be within you, but if it's not.
Yeah, I would say just get quiet and watch more and listen more. And you figure out so much. Like I would highly recommend to anybody being a shy kid for the first like 20 to 25 years of your life and just watch people. I know it's a long time. It's a long time, but I recommend it. Not everybody. Some people learn through talking, but like for me, watch people and learn. And then the other thing with educators is like, this is a contact sport. Like we have so many different rules and things that people have to say now, and you have to use this specific language and this specific language.
Right.
And it's good to like be updated on your DEI stuff, like you know what I mean, and all of that stuff. But education is a contact sport, and it's about relationship building, and relationship building is not always as antiseptic as what a lot of those places. So go and be around the population that you're serving. And mix it up. Throw stuff against the wall. Don't be ignorant. Try not to be ignorant. But if you are, apologize and move on. And try things and like, show people that you love them and that you care about them and that you want to help in whatever way that you can.
Right.
That's like,
I love it.
Yeah. That's all I would say. Yeah. And then otherwise you'll figure it out. Everybody has their own instincts and whatever.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
So, counseling and being a psychologist.
Sure.
What is the difference between the two?
Psychologists would do more testing if we were talking about like school setting. Like psychologists would be in their office and they would be doing a lot of testing to get like a diagnosis or something like that. And counselors just get to have fun, kind of. You get to talk. Yeah. But there's not as much of the testing component to it. At least in the school setting.
Right.
Yeah.
So you think that's what it separates between the two roles the most?
Yeah. If we're talking about schools, if you're a psychologist, like in real life and you're holding sessions and stuff like that, like sometimes a counselor will do that, but you're not technically supposed to do half-hour or hour-long sessions with a kid routinely. That's not really a thing. If it's like responsive level, like, oh, Darlencia just blew up in math class. Like, can you talk to her? Like, sure, I'll talk to her and we'll get you to an equilibrium and like, but it wouldn't necessarily be a routine session that we would have. Right. Yeah.
I love that you mentioned about blowing up in math class. That was never me. I never, my mom was not gonna, but there's a lot of mental health challenges that, mental health is one of the leading like topics in today's society, right?
Yep.
What is the biggest mental health challenges that you feel as those students face today?
Okay. I don't know if you're going to love this answer.
Okay.
But I think that we have to sift through what mental health challenges are versus what physical health challenges sometimes are.
Okay.
It's like sometimes, like, kids now will be on iPads or phones until 4 or 5 a.m. and they're coming to school and they're not rested. And so it's hard to focus. And so it's like, so in the school setting, like stuff like that. Yeah, it's like, first I want to make sure, like, when we talk about mental, because it's easy to slap like a mental health thing at somebody and be like, oh yeah, it's a mental health thing. But really it's like, how are we resting? Are we getting our sleep?
Right.
Order of operations. Are we getting our sleep? Are we eating okay? You know what I mean? And then it's like, yeah, what are the relationships in that person's life looking like? And what are the routines and habits and, like, you know what I mean? Because sometimes we talk about mental health and I feel like we're actually talking about something that's, we need to do other things before we look at, you know what I mean? Because otherwise,
like we're so quick to just, label it as mental health.
We can be real quick, and that gets scary because medications get involved and stuff like that. And they don't necessarily, in my opinion, that's a place where we need to, what's someone's screen time, what's their sleep schedule looking like, especially young kids with developing brains and stuff like that. I'm scared of that stuff. I want that to be like a bigger conversation than what it is. And mental health should still be a conversation.
For sure.
But ruling out the possibility that they might not be getting enough sleep or they might be on an iPad for 12 hours a day is important too. So right now, that's a big thing. And then when we get into mental health, people understanding that life is hard and that sometimes it's supposed to be that way. And I want to help you process, but I'm not going to be able to remove every hardship from your life. And sometimes it's not unicorns and rainbows. And like, that's sometimes sounds harsh for people, but like, it's hard to do all this stuff. It's hard for you to, like, you came from your job, you're doing this, like, it's hard to do it. It's hard to do that. And I'm not doing a student any favors to not point that out and not like make them prepared for like what they're going into, because school only gets more difficult. You know what I mean? Your job, you're going to have a boss. Like, it's not, you know.
So how can schools better support students with mental health needs? I know I love the concept, the notion that you raised about considering like how much a student spends on their devices and if they got enough sleep. That's a different angle that, I don't think we talk about as much. So including that as well, how can schools do a better job at, supporting students with mental health needs? Yeah,
the single best thing that any school can do is have great teachers in classrooms. So devoting whatever level of attention and funds we can and education to teacher education programs and getting great teachers in rooms. So often you'll see a kid and like you can probably think about this even yourself just through your education, like, oh, this person really progressed from last year to this year. Well, it's because they had Miss Willard in 8th grade. You know what I mean? Shout out to Miss Willard. And that made all the difference. That made all the difference in the world. Talk about something as an art form. Like, Willard is one. She taught me all of that. Yeah. She would be in a classroom, and she would be in her room, and I would be hanging out with her, and she would hear a teacher, and she would be able to look line by line go through, like, they said this and they should have said this. They went through this and they should have said this. It was like a scientist, like going through, like, just like, and you look at Willard and you're like, she's just a friendly person. But no, she really, the way her brain processes any type of communication like that was crazy to me. And I was like, I got to learn from it. I got to learn from you.
I love that. Yeah. So in that, are there any initiatives or programs that you...
Dr. Fisher, by the way. She's Dr. Fisher now, not Miss...
Who's that?
I know. She got a doctorate and she got married.
Miss Willard?
Willard, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, hey girl, yes, congratulations.
Yeah.
So what initiatives or programs have you been involved with to address some of these issues, if you have been?
Yeah. My MO as a counselor is student growth. That's all. Like, if I have a student that is under my realm of responsibility, then I should be able to talk about ways that they're growing and ways that
Right.
they're not growing.
Right.
So for me, relationships are one thing, and it's an abstract thing. It's like, oh yeah, relationships, and it's unicorns and feelings parties and all that stuff. That's one. But then there's also there's this very scientific side of it and a data-driven side of it, to where like, okay, I want to know like what your test scores are from year to year, and I want to know what was your family environment like in 5th grade to 6th grade. I want to know, like, okay, you learned well here. Why was that happening? You know what I mean? What teacher did you have? What was going on at home?
Yeah.
Like, and I want to know like how we can kind of keep your learning on the rise.
Right.
And that's what's important. Like, you growing. It doesn't matter if you got an A on the test or whatever, but like, how are you growing academically? But then socio-emotional stuff is always, to me, tied to that. And we can look at socio-emotional stuff through the lens of, because if we're working at a school, then we need to look at where are kids learning? You know what I mean? Because that's what's the most important. It doesn't matter that you learn necessarily about Mesopotamia or whatever. But if you're learning, if your brain is being conditioned and figuring out how to learn, then we're winning in education, because then you can figure out how to do a podcast or
a talk show.
Or a talk show. Podcast. Is this a podcast?
This is a talk show.
Talk show.
Yeah. So to your point about kids spending so much time on social media, on their phones, iPads, what role do you feel as though creatives, he's taking a picture, what role do you feel as though creatives or entrepreneurs or just influencers can play in supporting students in their mental health journey? Because students, like kids, they consume a lot of screen time. So a lot of times they're learning things through social media and the internet.
I think there needs to be a little bit more realism when we talk about, sometimes when I hear people speaking, like they'll speak in like a very pronounced or deliberate way on a podcast about something that's mental health related or something. And I'm like, man, I don't know if it's that as deep as what you're not bringing the 10 Commandments down to anybody, but like we sometimes act like that, you know what I mean? And every podcaster tends to have a look, and it's just like mental health this and therapy that, and like and those things are great. I don't mean to discount and what it's done for anybody. I'm not gonna like yuck someone's yum or like in any way, but yeah, sometimes there's parts of those conversations that I think are missing, and that's, like I said earlier, like sometimes just like, this is a hard thing to do, and like how are we gonna accomplish it? How can creatives help nurture that? You're doing it, I think. Just talking to people, having conversations.
One of the things that I feel like educators struggle with, right, in school districts is retaining teachers.
Sure.
Because they go into a school that is in a low socioeconomic, area.
Sure.
And they're not from that area. Maybe they came from the, suburban area, and they came with the intentions to create a change, but because they've never been in that environment, it's like a culture shock. And I feel like there a lot of times could be a lack of race and cultural awareness. So how do you feel as though race and cultural background impact the experiences of students in the education system?
Yeah. Shout out Lancaster County, by the way. That's where I'm from.
Shout out your suburb.
Lancaster County. Yeah. How do I feel like we can set teachers up for success?
That is not what I asked.
Hold on, let me.
That was good.
If they're coming from, I'm just trying to. If they're coming from an area that isn't like the area that they're teaching in, kind of. Yeah. Here's the thing: is like, I've been successful. Like the whole what drove me to your talk show. Sorry, you got Oprah here, y'all. Was the idea of creativity being a part of education. And so like when I'm able to look at what I'm doing as an art form, and I have an administration that sets me up in that way, then I can come to school and create and do things and I enjoy it.
Right.
But most teachers don't have the freedom to do that. So number one, we talk about payment. We talk about how much teachers are paid, and they're not paid well.
Right.
Neither are counselors. But it's fine. You're paid enough. You can live. You know what I mean? I can go to a baseball game from time to time, and that's cool.
Time to time.
That's all I need. But we don't talk about free time they have within a day. And so, like, it's a difference there's a difference between teaching 4 periods out of 7 a day and teaching 6 periods out of 7 in a day. If you're teaching 6 periods out of 7 in a day, teaching is not an art form for you. Teaching is going class to class to class to class, making sure you're staying alive and you're keeping your head above water. And I have one period where I have to like shovel down a scoop of almond butter and chia or whatever you're eating, like, you know what I mean? And go to the copy machine and make these copies for because that's all I'm doing. And then it's going in front. As opposed to when you have 4, if you're teaching 4 periods a day and you have 3 periods where you can go and you can talk to other teachers and you can lesson plan and you can like envision what you want this thing to be and be deliberate about it. If you're teaching 6 periods a day, you're just keeping yourself afloat and you're just making it to the next day.
Right.
And when you go into teaching, you think of it like, oh man, like that's the kind of teacher I want to be. You think of the kindergarten teacher, your first grade, high school, you know what I mean? And you're thinking of it in art. But then once you're in it, there's some folks, and sometimes not even fault of the administration. It's just that it's how it has to be at the school, and you're just busy. You're just busy all of the time. And so that's how teachers get burned out. And so the kids that they love, maybe they start out loving, they start not because it's just like becomes a job and you start like,
Yeah.
So give teachers more time. And I do think we need to pay them a lot more.
Right.
A little bit more.
Right.
A little bit.
So I would say that you've adapted very well to working with minority groups.
You think so?
I think so. It's the examples are on social media. So can you share any experiences or challenges you faced related to race in your professional journey?
Okay.
Because you haven't really taught in the suburbs, so.
I never have. That's true. You know what?
I taught in the urban areas.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
I had 3 months this year. I taught at Malvern Prep, and I had to ask. I was like, I never taught white people before. I've never, and it was a wild, like, but anyway, we can edit that part out. But I did. Shout out to Malvern Prep.
We're keeping that in.
Man, all right. So here's what it is. You have to figure out who you are as a person, and then you have to try things, and it's all trial and error. Like for a while, I remember being in meetings at school, and like I would kind of sit there, like, and I would watch Miss Free, Miss Free or whoever talk this way or that way or that, and then I learned enough, and then one point I got in a meeting and I was just like, all right, I'm just going to say like how I feel about like what's going on with this particular kid. I'm going to throw it out there. And like, I remember doing that and it hit with people. And like, it was the first time ever. And Freeman was like, he was like, Whitlatch, he's like, you know your shit. I'm sorry to curse. But like, it gave me a confidence to where like, all right, I'm going to try stuff. And if it doesn't work, I'll hone it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But regardless of what racial group or ethnic group you're talking about, people appreciate love and they appreciate being real with them about whatever that thing is.
Yeah.
And they appreciate that you care about them. And so like, if you have those things, the honing of that is not super, and it just happens over the course of years through working with whatever the population is. At least that's what I've found, and not being scared to like try stuff. People just want you to. People want to see that you care about their kids, and that you are trying. And
do you feel as though, as a white educator, that you used your position of privilege fiercely for Black and brown students? If so, how so?
Yeah. growing up, like being around people that were different from me mattered. And I, was taught about like the injustices against communities of color for years. And I wanted my life to be about making that better in whatever way that I could. I wanted to be like someone who was going to like, someone's going to help the situation as opposed to harm the situation. And so, yeah, I've tried, but also I yield to my students and stuff like that on anything. Like they wanted me to do a video on race or, and I was like, I don't want to talk about this. I was like, you guys talk, like I'll talk to you and you tell me about this. So I don't consider myself an expert on any of it. And I'm still learning stuff like every day. And I'm definitely not going to be a white guy on a talk show that comes in and claims to know everything about minority groups or anything like that. But
how do you use your position of privilege fiercely for Black and brown students? I'm sure, and what I mean by this question is, I'm sure, so being able to speak up in spaces in which Black and brown students or maybe even administrators aren't able to. You shared with me an example that you shared in your previous employment where you've done that. You received backlash for it, but you still advocated on behalf of the majority population there.
Yeah.
And the school in general.
Yeah.
So could you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So I grew up in this profession, and just as a person in the job that I have, I owe most of what I am and a lot of parts, most of my identity to the job that I did. And I bonded with a community, and, I would do anything for the community that I was privileged enough to serve. And so using my voice, like for me, it's about creating as many chances as I can. Like, I don't know what it's like to grow up Black in America, but I know everybody is better. I knew everybody is better the more chances that we get.
Right.
And so my whole job, like, along with building relationships and figuring out growth, is like, I want to create as many chances for you as I can, because I know I needed a ton growing up in white middle class Lancaster County. So I know that you, like, I want the same thing for you. Like, I want every single possible door. And when I talk to kids, it's like, what are we doing that's creating opportunity for you? And what are we doing that's hindering opportunity for you?
Wow.
And like trying to like work with a kid on their own identity and the things that are leading them to and away from things is something that I'm always cognizant of, and that I'm always trying to work toward with a kid, with their family or whatever. So it's about using my voice, but like setting up as much opportunity as I possibly can, because I know all we really need is chances. Like, if you get one more chance, who knows like what you're going to do with it? Like, it's just like,
Yeah.
So
I love that you said that, because you pushed me in 8th grade to apply to this school, this high school called Central High School. And that is like a college preparatory school in Philadelphia. I believe it's still rated the #1 high school in Philly.
It's up there. Yeah. Oh, that's where everybody wants to go. What's the #1? Masterman is #1 in the state, according to U.S. News and World Report.
Oh, well, okay.
But Central's
probably the second, maybe. Not sure, but they're up there. And it's from my understanding, it was really hard to get into that school. And I was like, I can't get into there. My grades aren't perfect. I can't get into it. But you literally kept pushing me to apply. You don't remember? You were pushing me to apply, because I was never going to apply to that school. I didn't think that I could get in. And I think for that, you had to submit a writing piece, like a 1,000-character writing piece, handwritten, I think, or typed. And
it was a 1-page handwritten essay.
And I remember like coming to your office and showing it to you. And that is actually like, I think the only school I got accepted in.
Was it really?
Yeah.
You
It
might
was
be
that.
right.
It was that or Northeast.
I
But
vaguely remember, yeah.
I didn't get
your
accepted to a lot of high
application.
schools. And I'm like, oh, same thing with college. I didn't get accepted to a lot of colleges except for Penn State. And I'm like, okay, I guess, you know.
Yeah.
But and so I'm just saying, like, you really are an advocate for like helping your students like get as many chances as they can, good chances at that.
Yeah. When you're 14 though, and someone tells you that you can do something, or they point out and are specific with a compliment about you, it means the world. And so I remember very vividly being 14 and someone saying something that was like, most people don't give good compliments. They say you're nice or you're shy or and they're very vague. But when you specifically and like highlight a strength, then like you start to believe that. Like you really start to believe that. At 14 is different from 28. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, but like that's how it. And I just wanted Darlencia in as many spaces as possible. That would be my whole goal. So whether go to all the high schools, whether it's Central or wherever, it would be a better place with you. Yeah,
I love it. So, what strategies?
Yeah,
you're not even a strategy person, so I know that is not like that's not a word that associates to you. But you know, what tactics do you employ to promote cultural awareness and inclusivity in your school, your current school? And I know you don't do that forcibly, but it's something that comes natural from you. But
I'm not like man. So many people now are wearing like the slogan-y shirts and stuff like that. My shirt is just Shang Wang. Shout out Shang Wang, by the way.
You're doing a lot of shout outs.
I'm plugging. I'm going to be famous after this podcast.
Yes, you are.
So, you know, I'm going to get an agent, a manager, a whole thing. I wish I could say that I'm better with like cultural fairs and we have this fair every year and 40 people set up different ethnic cuisines and like I'm not amazing with that. If somebody tells me to do that, the joy in it is connecting with people and bringing everybody together in it. I don't necessarily think that's going to change the world in terms of like cultural sensitivity or culture. Maybe it's probably maybe do a part. But programmatically, like, I just try to bring out what I see as being great in an individual. And so as much as like, and so race, some people, and when you're looking at a person, like sometimes race is what they lead with. And that's wonderful.
Right.
And sometimes it's 2 or 3 things back and what they, but you know what I mean? And so like, any of those views is fine. I'm just like, but I want to bring out whatever the essence is of that person, whatever age they are, whatever their background is, whatever their race is. And I want to bring that all together and I want to have fun with everybody. And I think that's like the joy that I get. And like, no, let's bring out those things. And if that thing happens to be your race, then wonderful. That's great. You know what I mean? And if it's something else, then that's great too. Like, you know what I mean? Like you're a Haitian born person in Brooklyn or yeah. But like, there's so many other things that I want. And being Haitian is one of them for sure. But like, there's so many other things that you bring into this that like, I want everybody to be able to come together and like, so yeah, how do I promote it? I think like, I try to promote it to the level that it's important to somebody. And like, I don't know if that even makes sense as an answer, but
it does.
But I want everybody to love one another and I want everybody to have fun together, regardless of what the color of their skin is or their cultural background. And it's so fun seeing that. You know what I mean? Like, so.
Mr. Whitlatch for president, y'all.
Oh, never that.
So do you have any words of wisdom or inspiration you'd like to share with current or future students who may be watching?
So I used to be the counselor that had like, even after you, I was like, let me figure out what are the best quotes. And I got them all on these like felt, like we could put them in here. They fit in. These felt things are made by this company called Oxford Pennant. Shout out Oxford Pennant. No, I'm just kidding. But they would be these quotes that I just really enjoyed. One was like Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah.
The other one was, whoever. I don't even know who the other one. And then I was like, you know what? Forget all of this stuff. And I took them all down one year, and I had one pennant, and I put it up, and it said, "You'll figure it out." Because that's ultimately what I want for anybody.
Right.
It's like, I can give you my perspective. I can give you my thoughts. Maybe I can give you what I would do if you really want that.
Right.
But ultimately, your instincts are what's most important. And I want you to try stuff, and I want you to hone that, and you'll figure it out.
Right.
And I believe in you because I see this in you. You know what I mean? And that's what I want. I don't want to. My advice is just you'll figure it out. You know?
I love that. Oh my goodness. I feel like we can talk here. I say that with every episode. Like that, I feel like I can speak with my interviewee for so long. Mr. Whitlatch, thank you for being here. But before we transition, where could we find you? Like what do you have?
Oh man. So my counselor Instagram right now is free agent Mr. Witt. I am at a school.
Yes.
But my counselor Instagram is free agent Mr. Witt.
Right, you can say your counselor. You got a personal one too?
I did, and I got rid of it because I was like, we got to get off social media. Yeah. So I only right now have a counselor. I only have a counselor one, and that's where it is. And I'm figuring it out, man. Yeah. You know.
Mr. Whitlatch, thank you. Adam.
Before we quit, I need to say this on camera, how proud of you that I am just for everything that you've done. And if I need to like impress that on the camera and everything. You are one of the most wonderful people. And when I say that you truly are one of the people that are why I'm in the job, you are one of the people that is why I've been in this 16-year career, because I so loved and can so remember, like you're tattooed here, like you. Right. And it's the people that keep you in any of these things. And like when you were like, come to, actually, I was one who suggested it.
You reached out to me. No, but I'm so glad that you did, because this is really a full circle moment. Like, I thank you for seeing something in me that I had no idea when I was in 8th grade, like at all. And on behalf of like all the students that you have touched and impacted, I like thank you, because it really is hard to find people that understand us, especially in the realm of education, and so I know that the younger students that you're working with now, they really appreciate that. I see you still, like, he literally goes to people prom send-offs, to his students prom send-offs, graduations. Like, he's so supportive, whether he's still working with you as your counselor or not. And it's just like, who does that? Like, you are so invested, and that shows. That's why you get so much love. That's why there was a protest on your bed last year. And we ain't gonna talk about that, but
that's a whole separate.
That's a whole other thing.
Another Creative Spotlight Unplugged. It's a privilege, and it's the blessing of my life to be able to do the work that I do.
You're tattooed in our hearts.
And I love you, and I'm proud of you, and I'm glad you're doing this, and keep spreading those wings and being in space. We need more Darlencia everywhere.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. And that wraps up this episode of Creative Spotlight Unplugged. You can find this episode on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Thank you for watching.